Hi, I'm Angela, and this is the third video in a four-part series, which is called The 3 Real Reasons We Fear Commitment and How to Move Beyond Fear or Apathy to Make Empowered Choices that Encourage Love to Thrive. Whew. So this third video, I'm going to be looking at this classic story that you've probably heard, I don't have time. I don't have time. So you've probably heard that in many things. And this three-part series is really addressing how in all of our relationships at the moment, whether it's work, friendship, dating, any commitment, people are having problems committing, turning up, showing up, and it can be just down to, I don't have time. It's one of the most classic responses that you probably would say in your own mind, and you probably hear it as a justification. So this four-part video series is looking at the 3 reasons, and I've got 2 other videos for the first and second reason. So I could just briefly, I'll review what I covered in those videos, and I'll put in the links in the description below later for those first 2 videos covered. So the first reason, the inner world reason, is if I choose anything, if I commit to anything, what if I'm wrong? And what I was saying for that one, in terms of what we might hear on a cultural level, or you might hear it as well, if it isn't easy, I don't want to deal with it. So it's kind of how we have a consumer society. So my offering or position on this is that underneath that surface reason of if it doesn't work, I don't want to deal with it. If it's too hard, I don't want to deal with it. There's an actual feeling inside, in our inner world, if I choose anything, what if I'm wrong? And the fear about that being wrong. So that's one of the big reasons. Reason number 2, which I covered in video 2, was on the inner level, we actually feel this: I don't trust myself to make things work. So on the outer world, you might hear in society people saying there are no guarantees in relationships, nothing is sacred anymore, commitment isn't sacred. Well, what that's pointing to is that you don't feel like you can make the relationship work. So I don't mean making it sacred or something like the traditions in our cultures used to do. You might feel that without some sort of external culture or sacred institution to kind of pressurize people to be committed and to look at what their choices are, or not choose some of the choices because they're fearful of an institution, that you actually don't have the courage or what it takes inside of you to actually stick to some sort of core commitment, values, or whatever makes someone deeply committed and stick to that commitment. So that's a really big piece. In the second video, I look at sacredness and how also the membership that I'm offering gives a space to create that for you. So if you're struggling with that, sacredness is a huge piece that we're transitioning through. So don't think you're alone. Don't think you're alone. Oh no, it's a global thing that we're moving through. So for this video, I'm looking at this reason, the surface reason of I don't have enough time. And in the first video, I looked at, we have these things that we say in society. We might say it to ourselves. We might say it to others. We might hear it all the time. I don't have enough time. I don't have time. So what's going on on the inner world? What is actually being hidden by this surface glib kind of phrase, I don't have enough time? So the real inner world reason is I say I don't have enough time because that means I have to look at myself and hell no, I don't want to look at myself because of these following reasons. Why do we avoid looking at ourselves? If it was so awful, there must be a reason that we've given to ourselves on our inner world that makes us fear looking at ourselves. So here are just some of the reasons. I've already given you reason 1 and 2, which contribute to that. And I also wanted to share that we all know that time and quality time is that foundation of loving and committed relationships. Without the time together, you don't actually build that bond, and it's face-to-face contact. So a lot of people now are missing out on face-to-face contact, and that's the nature of our modern life. But we know this. We know that face-to-face quality time actually is the foundation of intimacy, trust, depth, getting to know someone in many levels, not just that superficial level. So why don't we do it? And this is where those reasons come in underneath, I don't want to look at myself. So what we're really saying in our inner world when we don't have time is that I don't want to see what I've not done to make things possible in my life. So unconsciously, we're carrying a lot of, we know that we've avoided certain things in our life, but we're living on the surface of life, and we think that's better because we don't want to look at what we may not have done to change things. We also are really insistent that we're not guilty for the lack of good relationships in our life. It's not my fault. And this is where I've found a lot of people really feel guilty and beat themselves up and spend a lot of energy in pursuing this route of that I'm not the guilty one, because I actually do feel guilty. So when we say we don't have time, we don't want to see where perhaps you may have let yourself down or other people down, and because we feel guilty, right? And we don't admit that we perhaps contributed to pushing people away because we have this story that it was me that was hurt when I was let down. It was me who was ignored. It was me that they avoided or didn't treat it right. They hurt me. So we get very invested in hurt. And then hurt also then seems to validate and justify us not being guilty. We're not the ones that are guilty. So that's a really good way that we get stuck. And then there's more reasons, because that unconscious world likes to pile on the reasons why we don't have time. And here's where we get to staying with our hurt and justifying our hurt. We're not guilty. I don't want to grow and see where I could be different, because I'd rather spend my time staring at my navel, reinforcing how less and inefficient I am, because they made me feel that way when I was growing up. Because those people in the past, whether it's a past relationship, a past job, school, whatever, those people in the past that made you have an experience and you got hurt, you get invested in that hurt and feeling small and less. And that way it results in ultimately this position, I don't want to change. And we get a real emotional charge to it. So I understand this really well because I've actually been through it. So how to move beyond this habit? So with my partner, we live actually in different countries. So we have a challenge to learn how to come together when we can and enjoy that time. And I've managed to enjoy that time even if we haven't got a lot of time together. So the time we do have, it just feels wonderful. But is it that quality time with him that actually makes me appreciate the time? No. And this is the clincher for today, is how can you enjoy any time? Because time has changed. Our world is faster, our lives are faster, and it's going to get faster. This is what I discovered when I spent a lot of time listening to my inner world. The time I spent listening to my, I've called it here balderdash. In Australia we use other words, and in other countries balderdash is a British word for your stories about why you want to be hurt and be less, or why somebody else is responsible for your suffering. And yes, people do bad things, but holding on to it with that emotion is something that we invest more energy in many years after we've been hurt by the person. So I spent a lot of time looking at that balderdash, those stories, and that was the time that I got to see where was the origin of my balderdash, all of the stories that said, I don't want to change. So I saw how much energy when I spent by myself that I would spend on these stories instead of focusing on the love that I wanted to feel with my partner. This is all before I met him. So this is the key whenever you are complaining. Inner love relationship, a friendship, a family, even a job. Jobs usually we have less emotional attachment to, but some of you will have a lot. But when you're complaining, catch that complaint immediately, because that's a clue about your inner world reasons for keeping you less and for keeping you stuck to some hurt or limited sense of self. You can't change, like in reason 2, I can't change my life to be better. Or in reason 1, if I choose, what if I'm wrong? What if I am responsible for something going wrong? So your complaints are key, because then you can actually go behind the complaints and see where they started. So when I bring my whining to the relationship, I can recognize it immediately, because I spent a lot of time hearing it by sitting quietly and listening to what were some of my stories about why I couldn't get what I wanted in life. And what happens in relationship, when I start whining, it's almost instant. I can see I'm bringing that balderdash. And I also ask some really easy questions to find out where they've come from. And that came from many years of sitting and listening to that inner world. So when you listen to that inner world and give you that time to see where your stories come from about why you can't make choices, or why you feel unable to give yourself time or give quality time to yourself so you can be more available to have fun with people that you love, or also not really care if people aren't able to commit, because you know that there is a deeper form of commitment that's available to you when you just understand yourself, and then you can bring that to a relationship or to someone who's actually going to be able to receive it. So when you actually learn that those ability to enjoy what you can bring to that listening to your inner world, that's when you can learn how to change how you can affect your relationship positively and creatively. And I spent a lot of time doing that, but that's why I've also created the Loving Relationships membership, so you can practice these skills, because they're not skills that can be learnt in an instant, but when they're practiced, they actually become really easy and simple, and I've simplified them in the membership. So how do we get rid of those annoying habits from the 3 reasons? The illusions around time, the fear of getting it wrong if you do, making a choice, and discovering what is sacred. In the next and 4th video, I'm going to look at how to move beyond fear and apathy of commitment with 2 really powerful strategies. So I'll let you know when that's coming up. And we're going to look at understanding your family dynamic, because that's where we get some of these stories from and these habits from, of holding on to old stories and energies. And also the energies can be a little bit older. So the family dynamic can show you somewhere the energies are a little bit older. They might go into your own ancestral history. And so when you find out that pattern, you can start to look at how to change that. So I've got the link in the description for the membership, and you can check that out as well. The family dynamic actually comes with the membership, and you can learn in the membership how to live that heart-centered life, because that's the tools that we practice on a monthly basis with guided exercise and a video lesson with me as well. So if you do have any questions, you can also email me, and that email's in the description below. And I look forward to sharing those 2 powerful strategies in the 4th video. And thank you for joining.